Hello. So here's the deal. I need, um, oh God, that's playing back in my ear. I need to stop that. Go away. No. Cool. All right. I need a way to statefully manage Terraform for an AWS project I'm working on. And I don't want to use Atlantis because, I don't know, my personal opinion, their GitOps is kind of and you can end up with drift because you end up with PRs that aren't merged. And it just ends up bad. You wind up in kind of a crappy state. So I decided I wanted to use something. I am currently broke, so I need something cheap. So I can't use Spacelift. Although Spacelift at one of my previous employers we used quite successfully, super awesome. Many people way smarter than me recommend it. Love that shit. Um, so I found Digger, which let me see if I can figure out my scene transition to pull this up after I pull up the. How cool is that? All right, cool. Now I want this one. Bingo. All right, so what is Digger? Digger is open source. It's basically doing kind of the same thing as Spacelift. It's just doing it's GitOps Terraform. So what does that mean? It means you go into your Git repo, typey, make your PR, do your thing, and then you go ahead and run your Terraform plan and run your Terraform apply. And one thing that's cool about this is it actually has locking. So if you have a pull request, I think it's if you have a pull request that's planned, then you cannot, or no, if you have a pull request that is applied, you cannot start applying another pull request until that lock is cleared by the pull request being merged. 90% sure that's how it works, but I haven't gotten to play with it because I don't want to use hosted Git. What is hosted Git? So you've got your Bitbucket, which is Bitbucket. You got your Bitbucket. You've got your GitHub, which I'm sure everyone is aware of. And then you've got your GitLab. GitLab. Boom, boom, boom. These are the big three. There's tons of other ones. The one that I am going to try to use is Gitea. Um, this is a self-hosted. You can see this is on my local. Actually, you probably can't see that because it's super small, but trust. Um, so Gitea is basically self-hosted Git UI. It's relatively, I don't proclaim to be a Gitea expert because I basically just discovered this thing when I noticed that Blender was using it. Blender 3D is using it for their repo, and I played around with that, and I was like, this does not suck, which has traditionally been the issue with self-hosted. You can self-host GitLab. Why don't I do that? Because I'm a masochist and I enjoy pain and suffering. No, actually, I don't like how pull requests look, like the UI surrounding pull requests in GitLab. Um, I also hate it in Bitbucket, but I have had to use Bitbucket multiple times in my career because people paid me, and I like money. Um, I like money. Anyway, um, so I'm going to use Gitea. Now, very first step that happened was I went, okay, cool. I'm going to use Gitea. This is going to be great. I'm going to go figure out how Digger works with Gitea, and everything will be thoroughly wonderful, and the world will be a happy place, and that will all be great. And then I found this. Oh shit! Plans to support Gitea. They don't have Gitea support right now. However, they did note that they had GitLab support. So again, if I was smart, I would go do that. But I'm not, so we're going to do something else. Um, jumped on their Slack, asked some questions, tried to find out what was going on. That was how I found this. Super nice people. I mean, it's a Saturday and it's like, I don't know, 6 o'clock in London. And this dude was just like, hey, random dude that showed up, want to chat, blah, blah, blah. Wanted to set up a meeting on Monday. Super nice guy. Um, really, really love these people so far. So there is not Git support, but it's open source, so I can do things about that. I am, after all, theoretically a developer of some sort. Um, so Git has an API, GitLab has an API, GitHub has like the API ever. Also, a really awesome GraphQL support, which strangely, I actually know the dude that helped them start that whole process because I worked with him at another company. Any rate, so we are going to implement Git support. Well, we're going to try to implement Git support. And I started doing this and I was like, I wonder how many people out there have decided they're going to do a thing and then started trying to do it in open source and couldn't figure out how to get there. So let's explain what has happened so far. So far, I don't want to open the image in a new tab. I want to open the profile. Screw it. We'll go through that. Repos. So far, I have made a fork of Digger. The first thing you want to do if you're going to contribute to open source software is read the contributing information. Um, this line makes it sound like they're kind of more interested in you using their product than developing it. Or sorry, this line. I get that. Um, I think they're probably much more interested in people buying their software, and I totally think that's an awesome way to go. Spacelift is very expensive, and Digger is not very expensive for their hosted option. So if you are slightly smarter than I am and don't want to just, YOLO and open source use everything, um, which isn't like an evangelical solution, it's more like being a massive control freak in personal projects because I have no control in what I do for companies that pay me. Well, that's not true. I have an immense amount of control over what I do in companies that pay me, but I don't get to do stupid shit because they pay me not to be stupid. So, in my home projects, I like to do stupid shit because stupid is fun. Um, anyway, all that is to say, read the contributing doc. This one's pretty straightforward. Basically, it's like um, telling you about the folder structure, telling you where things are, and telling you like how you go about submitting a pull request. Which, for the love of God, if you're going to submit a pull request of a branch to an open source project and you don't squash your commits, and eventually we'll get to the point where I show you what squashing your commits means, but if you don't squash your commits before you submit the pull request, you and I can't be friends. Period. The end. Um, all right, cool. So this is relatively straightforward. Now the next question is, what do we do? And I also set up like Gitea locally. That's why I forked that one and then screwed around and then built like various rando things. Let me drop this and show this real quick. Uh, so I've got like a Docker running that's, Postgres, and I just made this silly little Docker compose and whatnot and started this whole thing and followed the what did I follow? I followed their build from source. I think it's in their docs. Might be in their docs. Anyway, relatively straightforward. Run make with some various tags, and it builds a bunch of shit, and away you go, and you have a fully operational um, Git running relatively quick. So that was actually super nice. All right, now I'm going to go over to the Digger source and we'll look at this. Also, really nice and clean. Um, so I I first looked around to look at their GitLab support, which I found out was just like this function. And if I look at the annotations in the git blame, I was like, oh shit, that's a lot of changes. So that would be kind of a pain in the ass to implement with. But that is also somewhat dated, just because these guys are hauling. Like, I mean, go support Digger. Like, freaking cool project. Any rate, like this is old, and there's commits on this ranging from like this is GitLab improvements, but I think he added yeah, add GitLab CI. This is old. It dates back to May, and it's like November. So that's pretty slick. This is like 6 months old and has already like had a bunch of ads or adding to it. Azure CI, don't even really know what that is because screw Microsoft. Um, and yeah, all right. So I mentioned earlier, I have been stuck with using Bitbucket in the past, so I have a moderate understanding of the Bitbucket API. So this was a find. I discovered that they had actually implemented in pretty much one squashed PR. That's going to be a theme. That's going to be a theme. Squashed PRs, very important. But it's pretty much one squashed PR. There's a couple of like little changes. You can see how it's like highlights, but it's like these are mostly these mostly appear to be the ones that are embedded in here anyway. Oh, it's like a config repo and some stuff like that, but that's fine. We can adjust for that. The main thing I needed was a rough idea of what this basically looks like when you implement one of these. So from those diffs, I get to pull all of this up, which basically gives me a roadmap of exactly how I go about doing this. Um, so this is adding Digger package Bitbucket, which is that. We'll look at that in a minute. It's adding strconv. Don't really know why. We'll figure that out. Scroll all the way down to where there is actually some changes. And then here is where they implemented that Bitbucket CI func. And it's just kind of rocking and rolling down here. One thing worth noting is, no, yeah, no, these don't appear to be in alphabetical. I was thinking that because of Azure, but then you got GitLab and GitHub at the top. So they just kind of seem to want to keep them at the top, and they seem to be in order. These are important things to note because at some point I'm actually going to start typing and doing shit. And when I do that, I should probably try to have a plan. So what am I going to do? I'm going to copy pasta this giant mess into a new one. And then I'm going to start figuring out what this thing does, which is going to be fun because I don't really know Go. I am a assembly language programmer that didn't want to starve to death. So I learned first C, then C++, then Java. Got paid to do that for a very long time. Most recently, been using Rust. I know an insane amount of Python, um, TypeScript, ugh, uh, JavaScript, also ugh, but yeah, it's the state of the world for a while. Anywho, so yeah, this is going to be pretty easy. I get to copy paste this. Their package, I guess they're calling it, and I don't know if that is. That's probably like good hygiene in a Go repo. Again, not really a Go person, but looking at how many of these things are packages, presumably this is like the way you do that. Um, I could probably go research that, but realistically, I like to just start hacking and figure out where I end up. Mostly because nobody ever paid anybody for a long period of time to read the docs. I have been fired from multiple jobs for not making enough progress. If I sat down and read docs for 3 days or a week, um, nobody got time for that. So basically, it's like, cool, let's start from a place, and then the industry term is iterate. Um, Read that as try shit until something works. Um, so let's see what we got here. I am going to see what these requests are. This is a send request. These are authorization headers. They've got a bearer token. And one thing that comes out is Bitbucket is a hosted solution, so it has a base URL. I don't see any of these built around things, although GitLab's a good one, so let's just go look at that. GitLab environment type merge request. The reason I'm looking at this is I want to find out if they are supporting GitLab self-hosted. And interesting. Um, that's a very solid question. Um, I don't know if they are or not. I'm not seeing anything here that necessarily pins back to hosted GitLab, but specifically in here, let's see, how are they using this? Um, I need to open it in this kind of window so that I can do cool things like find usages, and my usages are. And okay, so they're hitting the API that way. Send, put, blah, blah, blah. So basically, like these are a series of presumably inherited functions, although we can check that real easily. Go to declaration. Yeah, CI service. Okay, so these are coming from the parent class or whatever classes are called in Go, because I know that Go doesn't really have classes, but it has some sort of abstraction layer that's similar to that, like interfaces. Any case, let's see what we got here. All right. That does not deter us too much. It does mean, where's my Bitbucket? Where's my, no, that's not what I want. That is not what I want. I want, where'd my diffs go? I threw that over there. Yeah, whatever. I'll pull that back up in a minute. So, actually I can pull it up right now by going here and going show diff. There we go. That is interesting. I might have to consider the architecture of how the GitLab one works too. GitLab, parse GitLab context, the new GitLab service, process GitLab event, GitLab service, get changed files, okay. GitLab service context project ID, merge request changes. What I want to see here is an API call. Create merge request discussion. Failed to publish comment. Okay, cool. So that I just used Command B in Golang. Also, if you're not using the IntelliJ family of things, like all the JetBrains development environments, you are sorely missing out. I know there's a whole group of people that their hot take is VS Code is amazing, but I got to tell you, it's so much easier. Uh, okay, cool. Okay, so this is using this call. This is S-client new request method post. What is U? U is format. U is the, okay, let's go see how this is implemented. Because it looks like U is the route and beyond. To infinity and beyond. But it is not including the root URL, which causes me to believe that they're using Go GitLab. I see. I see, I see. So they're using a Go GitLab client. That's what they are using. So somewhere in here, whereas I think this is written purely as an API. So that will be cool. So where do they get there's got to be a configuration into the GitLab client. Contexts. Where's this client get created? GitLab service, client discussions. So command B, client, go GitLab client. Cool. Now I want to find, that's a client. That's the, okay. I think Go is one of these backwards languages. Although I can't really complain because Rust kind of is too. I think this is the variable name and this is the type. Yes, that is the struct. Sick. And it has a base URL. So how are they setting base URL? So what I want to find in this file, base URL. Ooh, it's not set. That is interesting. Hmm. Find usages. It's probably being pulled in from a config, like a YAML of sorts. Uh, you know what we could do? We could look at the unit test. Unit test. CI/CD pipeline source. Well, that's anticlimactic. Okay. Okay. Path. URL unescape. Where's the URL? The URL is coming from the base URL. So the base URL has to have been set. So let's find usages. And this says there's no usages of base URL. F, actually command F, base URL. Oh, did I type it wrong in the other one? I think I did. I am such a dumbass. Nope. Okay. I'm still a dumbass, but for entirely different reasons. Base URL dot star equal. Okay, so the default is to GitLab. The set base URL is very likely why I can't find it, because it's probably using the method. It's not using the method. Okay, where else are the assignments? That's an assignment. Okay, so they're all in here. So the default is the host GitLab. The base URL is never set in here, which is intriguing. So the question that I have, this is looking like this does not have self-hosted GitLab support. So we may be inventing an entirely new thing, which is also super validating because that means that I am not an idiot for being unwilling. Well, I am an idiot, but I would not have been able to easily avoid by having to implement a Git I don't know, driver. I would not have been able to bypass implementing some kind of support in Digger um, for at least GitLab to set the base URL, because these are all based on hosted solutions, apparently, which is not bad. I get where they're coming from. I I represent a subsection of society. Read that as every cybersecurity company, every telecom company, and every major government, as well as crazy crackpot people such as myself. But those folks all they all self-host their Git repos, or their Subversion repos, or God help me, their CVS repos. Um, Basically, they self-host their code, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Some of them are IP controls, some of them are security constraints, some of them are just when you're working in cybersecurity, especially if you're working as a penetration tester, aka pen tester for obvious reasons. Um, you're producing things that you don't necessarily want out in the wild. And the idea that you're going to just slam those out on GitHub for some script kiddie to pick up, or even for some nefarious inside actor at GitHub to go pull that repo and do things with, you don't want the liability of that. And it also is bad press. So there's those reasons. Governments do it for, I don't know, tinfoil hat wearing, government conspiracy theorist reasons, I suppose. And then why do I do it? I do it because I am a control freak and I like to know where all of my stuff is at. And I don't like dealing with GitHub outages, which this is being recorded on November 4th of 2023. Literally yesterday, GitHub had a blip where it went down for probably 15 minutes, which is not bad in the grand scheme of things. But let's say you have Digger deployed in or Spacelift or Atlantis. This isn't like specific to Digger, it's specific to GitHub. But let's say you have any of those deployed with your GitHub Actions in place, or your Argo CD, or literally anything with GitHub Actions. Which, yeah. Also, I'll tell you something else. GitHub Actions, not necessarily the most stable triggering platform. Not going to make friends, but it's the truth. So let's say you've got those running there. Let's say you have your GitHub Actions. Let's say that is the only way that you can deploy infrastructure changes. Let's say that is the only way that you can roll out, or more importantly, roll back software changes. You are now fully dependent. Your entire CI/CD, your entire infrastructure as code rollouts, basically your entire platform is dependent on GitHub. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It depends entirely on your perspective. More importantly, the perspectives of the people who are reviewing your impact analysis statements when you wrote your impact analysis statements, if you bothered to remember that GitHub is definitely in there. So that is basically it. It is 1:30-ish. I am going to go ride one of my horses, and then I am going to come back and probably work on this later tonight. I will I will stream most of it. I don't know. I hate watching coding streams. Like, live coding streams are just so stupid. But it might help people, and you can fast forward through all the bips and bobs later on. Um, at the very least, I will do a stream where I review the entire pull request and explain what squashing means and all of that. I don't know if I'm going to write all of the code live on a stream. That just seems kind of incredibly freaking boring and like a massive waste of space on Twitch. Um, but anyway, I will be back at it later on today because I need to get this working because I have other shit I need to do after this that is far more fun and interesting. But that is how you contribute to open source in a nutshell, and how you kind of get started looking at the thing that you're going to contribute. Um, and yeah, should be good times. Thank you for watching this. Whoever decided to watch this, I think you're nuts, but I appreciate the hell out of you, and have a wonderful day. See ya.